Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. I'm your host, Craig Hamilton Parker, and I'm a psychic medium. And we look at the future and we look at what's happening in the world through the eyes of a psychic. Today, I'm going to look a little bit further ahead because I want to talk about 2028 and some things that have flagged up in the Naadi oracles about potential world crisis at that time. So, we're going to look at that. And you'll also hear on here some personal readings coming up later in the show, and my psychic insights as well as what the Nadis have to say. So, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi again, and welcome to the show again. And if you're here for the first time, do please follow the channel. And if you're here for the umpteenth time, give us a thumbs up because it helps the algorithm and helps people to find my channel. And share it too if you can. It's always appreciated. Because here we have a kind of a community building around this channel. And in particular, the comments. You'll find there's many hundreds of comments often. And it's often us all having a chat and interacting and steaming off about the things going in the world. Other psychics dropping in and other astrologers and mediums and thoughtful people coming in and adding their comments, and it becomes a very I find the comments almost more interesting than the video. Well, of course I am, because I'm boring, but the comments are very interesting to watch. Well, today slightly different sort of angle of things today, because I want to share with you something that I heard on about one of the Nadis recently, because I talk to people that research the Nadis. I'm talking to people that write books about the Nadis. I'm talking to the experts as well as the Nadi readers. And every now and again, it flags something. So I want to share with you today a prophecy that has just come up about 2028 in the Nadis. Well, in this part of the show is where I look at the Nadis. We don't always do this, not every week, but those of you that come to the show will know what they are. I'll just explain what they are. But they're a way of seeing the future. And the Nadis are written thousands of years ago on leaves, and written and rewritten and rewritten and copied and copied and copied over centuries and centuries. And they think they're thousands of years old, 5,000 some say they go back even further, 10,000 years. They've been radiocarbon dated to about 500 years, but that's since the last copy of the leaf, as it were. And in the leaves, they tell you the future of a person, the potential future, actually, because within the Nadi also, there are what's called remedies that you can do to kind of nudge your future in a better direction. And it's all based upon past life karma and what we bring with us into this life. And then it tells us how we can work with that karma to get a better outcome rather than get the full effects of the bad karma from previous lives. Now, most of you who've come to the site and have had Nadis done through me, actually, have gone through Dr. Q. I put a link in the description, those that are still interested in finding their own personal Nadi. But the personal Nadis are only small part of it, actually. The Nadis are a very vast collection of libraries that were been there for a long time. They were all stolen by the British, and then they were auctioned off by the British, and some were lost. But amongst them are also some very special Nadis that have other what we call kandams or chapters in them. Most people just access their main kandam, but the the kandams will also tell you other things about your life, but also about on bigger fields. And there's one or two kandams there that are also for political kandams, and not many people know that. We're trying to work out just how many Nadi kandams there are, because they vary from leaf to leaf. I mean, they're all divided up into these various rishis that came from the scepter rishis that were passed down through Shiva, through Murugan to the I think it's 36 other systems. And within all this, there's one or two that have the secret nadis, again, which are not usually for public digestion, but can sometimes reveal some information that can be shared. Now then, I'm saying this today because there's been some quite interesting revelations through these nadis. Now, I did make originally an earlier video for this, put it up ready for a premiere. So sorry to those of you who've come to me again, because I've re-recorded this now, because we went through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we got some of the interpretations right, because there's certain words within the Nadi that can have multiple meanings, just like the original characters of each letter. You know, when you access your Nadi, they'll be calling out the first words, and it can mean 3 or 4 different consonants or 3 or 4 different vowels in each language. So it's a different way of writing. So we looked at it in detail to see if we can work out more what this political chapters had. Now, the reason I say this is because 3 different people have consulted the Nadis, and although we're obviously not going to mention whoever any of those people are, because it's always done with the utmost discretion when a person has a personal Nadi, but sometimes in each person's Nadi, there's something revealed that's similar in each different one. One of those people that consulted the Nadi is a politician, and that some of the information was given to them from the political Nadi about their role in the future in politics, which I'm pleased to say is very good for them. But also, it's also talking about some of the political things that may happen in the world. Now, like I said, it was confirmed 3 times this, right? Now, initially, when we looked at this, many of the Nadi readers were interpreting it to say that the next president of the United States will be a female Democrat. Now, some of those on the potential for that could have been people, for example, like Katie Porter, Eleni Konalakis, if I've pronounced that wrong, haven't I? Sorry, but I'm not American. Tony Atkins, Betty Yee, and people like that who are, because it said it would be Californian. It was talking about California a lot as well. But the more we look at it, the harder it is to interpret whether they've got that right. So in the second part, where I'm talking later on, you'll see a piece that was on the original recording where I'm talking about my predictions, what I think will happen in this time. Now, the Nadis were all referencing, they base it upon your current age, your age running at the time. And all 3 of these were pointing to 2028 as a critical time. Now, obviously, the next American election is November 2028. Well, that's what we're thinking it's likely to be. And it seemed to point out there was a word. Now, I can't remember the exact Tamil word. It's ancient Tamil word, but there's a word that means both war and simultaneously, where do we word it? It's war and catastrophe. Or calamity, that's the word. So it can mean both war and calamity. And we were looking at this, and it was saying that in 2028, for 3-year period after that, there is war and calamity. But we needed to look into it a little bit more detail to understand what that meant. It also said that there would be, and we're going to get the wording exactly right, because I've got all my notes in front of me here. So forgive me for not typing it all out, but I wanted to get it all planned out in time, because I wanted to get this out for the time this video is released. Now, so it's war and calamity, and it said the exact words were that there would be a change of political leadership, right? Now, initially, we understood it to be change of political party, which suggested that it would be the Democrats. But it says a change of political leadership, which suggests, well, I've suggested that I think Trump will get a third term. So that would suggest rule that out. But many of the Naadi readers were interpreting it as the change completely. That would be, the person that consulted the leaves, for example, was a Republican, told change of political party, and suggested to them that, that means the Democrats. But we were jumping a bit to conclusions because we looked through and some of the words were slightly kind of nuanced to suggest something different. And so the actual way it writes out is change in scenario, right? Which can mean an awful lot, can't it? But all these three different readings were pointing simultaneously to 2028 as a major turning point, but also not just politically, but something at that same time is likely to happen that is going to disrupt tremendously the whole political landscape. Now, we were a bit uncertain about this again, because looking at my notes again here, there was this slight conflict of ideas in it, because it seemed to suggest on one hand 2028 was the change in political scenario, but also between 2028 and 2029 there is some major natural disaster, and it named three elements of wind, fire and water. So it didn't mention earth, so that makes me think, okay, it's not an earthquake that would do this. That would suggest it's not something, but there's something that disrupts America, particularly at that time, that is major. And the Naadi seem to suggest that the political parties, the people in control at the time, would not be able to handle it. They wouldn't know what to do. It would be absolute chaos. Now, if you think about it, Trump is very, very good, I think, with his role as a negotiator and so forth, but he had terrible trouble with COVID, I would suggest, because you can't negotiate with COVID. And the same thing seems to be when you get some general natural catastrophe like this, you can't negotiate with it. So the questions are, what is this huge calamity? And it said it would and in each one, in one person said it told them to buy a farm, and told them the date and when they should do that, to sell their house and buy a farm before the house prices collapse, right? And to buy a farm and grow chemical-free vegetables, chemical-free stuff. So it said about the importance of being chemical-free. So could there be something with this big catastrophe that's suggested here in 2028 that has something to do with a chemical problem, perhaps? Chemical food that is chemical free. And they were told to move west, and they already live in California, so there's not that far west they can go. But but that might just be on a personal level for them of where it's best for them. So lots of question marks over that. What is this scenario they're talking about? What is the likely and this happens this was also mentioned in the political Naadi, as it were, that something would happen with that. So one other question was, could this have been war? Because this same word, calamity, can also mean war. But like I say, we're kind of interpreting it as a environmental calamity of some sort. It appears to be that way, but could it be war as well? I mean, later on, I do give my you watch some of the other sections of this video. Like I say, I'm remaking this bit. I seed a few ideas about what I feel could be possibility of war at the time of November 2028. So it also spoke here. It did say that America would make enemies right at this time. This is why, again, there could be the question mark of war. And it talked about enemies with a neighbor. And it particularly said the word neighbor. And when you look at the Nazis, you've got to be really cautious and look at every single word, because a single word can mean so much. I mean, not a single word in the Nadis has no meaning. That word neighbor. So when you think about who are the neighbors to the USA, Mexico, could we have a war with Mexico? Canada, could we have a war with Canada? But then, of course, another neighbor is Russia and Alaska. We always forget that there's a border there between Alaska and Russia. So could it mean a flare up with Russia at that time? Now, remember, all I'm doing here is making interpretations, and we're going to be looking at more of these Nadis to see if we can get more detail about this. I know a lot of the Vedic astrologers have been saying that they're predicting world war in 2029. Jane's always said to me, the year we got to all watch out for is 2030. But I don't want to start getting over alarmist with this, because with all of these things, it's always important. Why do they give us this information? They give us this information so that we can make things better. The whole idea of the Nadis is to have you get remedies and ways through, and to help us avoid catastrophes in our personal life, and why not also with the world as well. So that's some of the main things. So, like I said, it was 3 different Nadis with 3 different readings being done. I'm not sure which time. I know what one of them was the Prashana Nadi that had been read. I'm not sure if it was a Jiva Nadi, the other one, or not. But whatever the case, they're coming through in different forms for this. This would. Yeah, so we were wondering, is this radiation contamination? Could that be represented by those 3 elements? And it tells people that it says that this calamity may affect people's health. So they got to take care of their physical bodies. So this, and it said, and one said it affects California, but one of the other readings said it affects the whole of the USA. So there's something suggested there in the Nadis of a major calamity coming up in that time. Could it be connected with weather and climate? Could it be a crop failure? Because one of the other things it particularly spoke about feeding people. It said the actual wordings were some people would not even be able to have a single meal in a day. It spoke about mass starvation. Now, if we've interpreted this correctly, we've had 3. I wasn't there to listen to the Nadis directly, but I have heard a few clips from it, and the person who has gathered this information is very, very well respected Nadi expert. So it's something I won't take lightly. It's something that I think has quite an importance, because it was talking about 4 to 5 years in their from now in their own life running, as it were. And also, I think there's been some interest in it. So I think some of the people because some of these Nadis are being read also in Russia and Japan. I mean, I don't think many of you are aware of just how much influence the Nadis are beginning to have around the world now. There's been many thousands of Nadis open for people in Russia, for example, which I think is very interesting. And Japan has taken an interest in it. And of course, a lot of you now listening to this channel in English have been getting your Nadis done. And, it's mind blowing, isn't it? If you find it properly and you approach it with the right mindsets. And you do gain a lot from it and learn a lot, and opens you into a whole new spiritual perspective. So my thoughts are, these Nadis have been here for centuries now, and they've been helping people on individual levels. I know for a fact that Modi consults the Nadis and has influenced the course of India. The Nadis are written by the great enlightened rishis who are helping to guide mankind. So could it be that these Nadis were put down at that time, centuries and centuries ago, to help us all through these difficult calamities? And surely that's message for hope, isn't it? That we can do that something is there saying, right, there's troubles ahead, but there's ways through it. And I think as more and more political leaders and people with influence start to access their Nadis, and particularly these deeper Nadis that I talk about, which are not open to the general public, but if I sometimes we can point the right people in the right direction, we might avoid many of these problems and the mass pandemonium that is predicted for 2028, when all the political parties completely fall apart and a new political regime, or not regime, a new political order takes control. What could that be? Could that be a complete switch to the Democrats, or even Elon Musk, or is there a new ones for Trump? I'll talk about that later on. But yeah, so there we go. Those are the sort of things that have come up in that, and some food for thought, I think. A lot of it is obviously highly personal. There's an awful lot more I could say about this, but I won't say about this because it's not fair. Obviously, we have to keep right and above our agenda with all these things. Always the Naadis are written for the personal spiritual development of the person receiving it. So it's like personal readings with me. You don't talk about what's been seen, but about on a personal level. But it said people cannot eat food, something toxic. Perhaps it's a bio attack of some sort, and people not eating meals for one day, and this complete and absolute upset, because they say that the political party running America at the time, which would be the Republicans, are not trusted because of the way they handle this crisis. So could that flip the whole way American politics are going? It's interesting, and it kind of ties in with a lot of the predictions I've been making on this channel before, and we'll investigate those in a minute. We'll look at those after the next sections. So anyway, that's my thoughts about the Naadi. A couple of other little notes, actually. I'm just going to also add in here. I forgot to mention also that in 2030. It says there will be a change in the Republican Party top leadership, and it said that it said the same party as the person that was consulting it, and also it predicted that there would be a Republican governor of California in due course too. So there's a couple of little extras for you, which I think is quite interesting. So anyway, that's the Naadi for you. So coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to share with you my psychic thoughts about 2028 and how they may differ from the Naadi's predictions. But before that, here's a little clip that I've made after one of my meditations, in which I tune in to somebody watching the show in what we call advanced clairvoyance. Then after this, some of my predictions too. For this part of the show, I'm now going to do some personal clairvoyance for somebody out there, because I do what we call advanced clairvoyance, not advanced, in advance clairvoyance. As I explained before on the show, these are little things we used to do in spiritualist church, that you write down some details about someone before you go to do your demonstration at the spiritualist church, and then read out the message for someone in the audience. And everything written on the piece of paper, most of the time, always, usually, would be taken by someone in the audience, and they say, my God, how did you know that? And so it's the spirit working with us in advance. So if it can work in a spiritualist church, it can also work here on YouTube. And I've been doing this for some years now, and every single message has been taken to date, and every single detail in those messages has been taken to date. So let me give you the what I was getting through my meditation a little bit just before I turned the video on for this, and see if it's for you. You need to take all of the information, but if it's for you, the most important thing, please, is do mention it in the description. Don't email me or anything like that, because I can't react with that. I mean, I need, because I won't get more later, but please do put a comment if it's for you, and if I can pick up any more, I'll say it in the comments of this video, but certainly not by email. So yeah, so these are the details I'm getting. Is this for you? Now, I was feeling a man around me. He gave me the name Joseph, right? And this is a family link for somebody that's connecting here, and I felt it might be a grandfather link. I thought the father's side of the family, and there was associated with this was also that the family had owned land. Now, associated with Joseph, there was also someone else called Anne or Annie, because I wrote it down with an E on the end. So it's either Anne or Annie. And there's also connected around this, there's the surname of Tyler, or something that sounds very similar to that. Tyler, I felt it was. And they give me, I asked them to give me some proof that the person who's watching this now would understand, that could connect with this. And one of the things I want to say is that you have your mother's Bible. And I feel the mother is on the spirit side, but something about you have your mother's Bible, perhaps something significant about that. A lot of people have Bibles of their mothers, for example, but I felt as if you were looking at it, or there was something with it that maybe pressed flowers in it, because I felt I looked in and saw a flower. It looked like a violet colored flower, and a daisy next to it. So are those names important? Violet and Daisy, do they come with this as well? But it seemed to be they were pressed in the Bible. And there was also an incident that you would understand about a watch that broke, but then started on its own, which can happen, but it started at a very significant time for you. It seemed to have some special correspondence with the spirit. And the person also knows the family name Draper is also connected with this family link. Draper is also important to you. It's linked somehow in what I'm saying here. So that's the other surname that feels important with this, that the name Draper is associated with this. And the person actually watching would have had some tragedy further back in their life around them, or someone close in their family, where I feel there was a baby that was lost and is safe now in the spirit world. It's not a prediction for anything happening if there's any pregnancies around you or anything like that, not that, but it's something that happened in the past, and it was a tragic moment in the past that they're talking about to me here. And then I said, what's the message? And they gave me a beautiful scene. I saw a very happy sort of feeling for you. The troubles are behind you, I want to say, but I see a new house, and it's a new house in the sunshine. And I particularly want to say it's in the sunshine. And I don't think that's just symbolic of being a happy sort of place, but it feels to me that it's somewhere abroad, maybe somewhere south, maybe somewhere warm, that you're buying, maybe a second home or something like that. But it gave me a happy feeling and a happy time ahead for this. Okay, there it is. And if the message is for you, do please put it in the comments. That way people can see that this is a real thing and that we do genuinely get a proper connection with the spirit. Please point out all the items that have been said in this, all the things that have been said, if they correspond correctly with you. Okay, thank you. And thank you for taking the message. So I certainly think there's going to be a very important time in 2028. And I think it's a good idea to put these out on the videos now in 2025, me talking in August 2025, of course. And it might be interesting when we look back at this. But one of the things that I feel is, well, first and foremost, the Naadis. You've got to be a bit cautious with everything that you hear and see with predictions for the future, including myself, of course. And we've got to always use, common sense with things, and we get glimpses. I always say it's like through a mirror darkly. Now, the Naadis can be very, very accurate, as you know, enormously accurate about a person's life, but they're prophecies for a person's future and don't always necessarily follow exactly as written in the Naadis, because we have free will. And that means that we can change the future. Otherwise, it would be pointless doing all these remedies and things, because the remedies are there to help prompt us onto the better path, and to get on a path of better karma, that rather than suffer from the problems that is brought forward from the past. And the Jiva Nadis are different too. Now, I have to say, with that Nadi that I've just quoted there, I wasn't physically watching that Nadi being read. This was something I was told from a very a reliable person that told me that. But who knows with the Nadi reader themselves? Sometimes with some of the Nadis, there's different ways the Jivas work. Sometimes the Jiva will show the writing on the leaf, sometimes it will be channeled by the actual reader. Now, as soon as we get some form of channeling, we get exactly the same problem as what happens when mediums channel the spirit, for example. If I was to channel, I mean, we talk about trance, for example. I will sometimes let a person speak directly through me in mediumship, but it's still filtered by my mind. So I'm aware sometimes that my own thoughts are here running in line with it. And we can never get a complete pure channel because it has to come through the medium. It's a bit like light coming through stained glass window. It's white light, but it's changed to multiple colors. So it's often colored by the thoughts of the medium. So I have to always, with that type of Naadi, I kind of have questions with it. And I would always, from my own point of view, need to see it directly with my own eyes. But I wanted to share that with you because I said I'm going to look at lots of Naadi readers and see what they're talking about and see if the other things correspond. And I've been talking to getting some more of these insights. So it's an Naadi one today. So I think that's quite interesting what was said. But does that correspond with what I see for 2028? Because in some of my predictions before, I've hinted at what could happen in 2028. For example, I said I felt that Trump would have a third term. Now, well, actually, I actually said I think there will be talk about Trump having a third term. And that all sort of blew up soon after I made that prediction, which makes me think, was I picking up on that controversy that was happening in the news at that time, soon after I said about the third term, or will he try for a third term? Well, my thoughts are that it could be a possibility of a third term for Trump, because although constitutionally it's completely wrong, and there's no precedent for that at all, as far as I'm aware. And, the Constitution of the United States doesn't allow for that sort of thing. But what if these calamities were happening in 2028? What if at November 2028, when the next election should be called, what if there was some huge crisis in the world? Would it be an appropriate time at that time to have a vote for a new president? What if the Naadi's right and there's a war? What if there's famine in 2028? What if in 2028 there's a big crisis? And I do feel that in 2028 there will be some major crisis of some sort, a war-type footing. It could be that that's the time we see the collapse of China. What I've talked about many times before here, that a long time back, I was talking about that I felt China is not going to be the great steaming dragon all the time, but it's going to actually cave in on itself and break up into smaller countries. Could that be the time when we see the fall of the Chinese Communist Party? Could that be the time when we see the crisis that I've been speaking about in Taiwan actually happening then? I mean, it's a possibility. It could be pushed along just about that far. What a good time to choose, for example, to invade Taiwan, other than at the time of an election. I made a mistake with one of my readings because I said I felt it would happen at the time of the last presidential election in the USA. It didn't. Well, was I seeing 2028? I don't want to make excuses for things. If you get things wrong, you get things wrong. That happens. We're fallible, all of us. But now I still get a strong feeling that there is something going to happen in 2028. And I don't see Democrats getting in then either. The Naadi reader there that I quoted earlier said that they felt people were unhappy with Trump. Well, yes, they're always going to be happy, whoever's in power, unhappy with whoever's in power. But America does appear to be steaming ahead economically. And it does appear that these dreaded sanctions do seem to be helping to bring back investment into the USA. Look what's happened with Apple, even though I think with that personally, they're making more of it than it should be. I mean, you want all manufacturing of iPhones, not just the screens and bits and pieces done in the USA, but it's a start. So it's like with everything, we have to interpret things. My feeling is that I said it before on another video, so I'm not going to backtrack on that. That's what I feel. I felt there would be a Trump dynasty and that J.D. Vance would be the next president to follow Trump. And after that, it would be another member of the Trump family, perhaps his younger son. I feel all that happening there. But 2028, I do feel there's something not right with it, and there's some environmental crisis. And another thing I have to say is I get the feeling there might be something literally that comes out of the blue, and it could be something like a meteor that hits the Earth. Now, that I'm not talking about something that would destroy the dinosaurs, but I get the sense that there could be a meteor that either hits the Earth or comes between the Earth and the Moon. It's a major problem. In fact, there was another Naadi out there that did spoke about something similar to that, but I feel something in that rings true to me as well. A crisis of some sort, an environmental crisis linked with a political crisis at the same time, simultaneously. So those are my thoughts with that. Those are my predictions for now for 2028. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about that in 2027. But here we are in 2025. What are your thoughts? What are your comments about this? What do you think will happen in that time, at the time of the next presidential election? You know, it feels a long way ahead now, but it's not that far. And like I say, I feel this is a real crisis time of some sort. Well, thanks for joining me for the show again. I think I'm going to do a few videos soon. I've kind of had the inkling to do a few videos about another aspect of my work, which is mediumship. Some of you read some of my books about that. My book, What to Do When You're Dead. Yeah, I hope some of you read that and enjoyed it. So expect a few new ones from me in the coming weeks, because I'd like to address some of the issues about life after death, particularly since I've known a few people who've lost people recently. And I think it's quite a nice time when I've been talking to others about this to make a video about it. So I'm going to do a few little videos about that. And I'm going to do a few other videos also about artificial intelligence and consciousness, because I'm very interested in that as a topic. And sometimes it's quite nice to get away from the predictions. I know you love the predictions all the time, but I also do like to talk about some of the things that I think are very important to us from a philosophical point of view. And let's have some of your comments. Do you like that idea? What do you think I should be talking about? Are there any particular issues you'd like me to talk about? So I'd like to talk about artificial intelligence a bit more. I'd like to talk about life after death a bit more. And of course, I will keep giving you these ones about current events and things like that as well. So, you know, some of your comments would be very, very nice. And particularly also the patrons out there too. You're at the moment, if you're a patron, you can also find out about the new artificial intelligence that I'm developing with some developers, getting at cutting edge AI and how it can change our world, but also how we can use it as an oracle. Absolutely amazing stuff. If you want to find out about that, please join my mailing list, which you'll also find a link to in the AI section on my website, which is in the description of this video as well. Okay, see you all soon. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary. That could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay. Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right? A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023. I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York. At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period. I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going. I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were, and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. That will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that. A hit or attack on our airplanes, on passenger flights or even freight flights. Because I also had at a similar time, I was also seeing this image of helicopters on fire as well. I seem to see like the west of America on fire and the east of America underwater, huge winds. And I actually saw, just like we had a major problem here in the UK where a tower block went up on fire, I see a tower block deserted. In Sweden, I saw Stockholm, and I saw the ship there. I think it's called Vasa, and I felt as if there was an attempt to try to set that boat on fire. And there will be mass layoffs. He's going to do to the government what he did to X, which is basically, let's pretty much sack everybody and let's re-employ those that are any good. I feel that Musk and Trump ultimately fall out. So I predict that they'll have a major fallout in the end. And more government control in cryptocurrencies. And, you know, I saw this image as well of the Eiffel Tower against the backdrop of burning Paris. Is there a big fire in Paris? that this year I saw big earthquake coming. And could that be coming soon? Could that be also coming soon on top of this? Because that was what I was seeing before. And you know, like I say, like that Santa Monica, where I thought the pier was going up on fire, that was obviously symbolic perhaps of Santa Monica going up on fire, because the fires are right on the doorstep of Santa Monica, is that there's going to be a major earthquake around both sides of the Pacific Rim. But it is like that. I felt as if there was something, a big plate move that affected right over from America to Japan.